Yes, sir.
Mark, good to see you, man. What? Coming strong. Look at you.
Yeah.
Gee.
Yeah, they were both here.
Because I'm gonna give them some copies. If you guys want it, she'll have it.
Copies of what you're going to speak on?
No. A couple of things I wrote under the city committee,
Well, we have a copy of your,
not just a report.
oh, something else? Okay.
Annexation, and then what was the other one? Oh, we drilled, the subcommittee looked at the drainage budget.
Okay.
I was told it's not factual. I said, really? Did you go back and check my math? It's not factual. So, anyway.
Okay. All right, good. No, you're going to have copies.
Yes, sir.
Good.
What's up, Brian?
Well, you fast. I just heard you on the radio.
I had to dart over here.
What's up, Jim? How y'all doing?
You want to run, Steve?
Good, good.
All right, good.
Good morning.
Morning.
Hey.
How you doing? Good. How you doing?
Huh?
I read your letter twice. Sure. All right. Yeah, see if I.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, this is, that's Robert. This is, we don't know.
Both very well,
I don't know,
very,
but I don't think we need to do
So
that.
we're not.
we're a learning group.
This will let the council.
Very clear.
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah.
Put on something to me.
I'm Josh Gunn. They ask you, it's like Robert's rules, you gotta accept the minutes of the meetings from last meeting. You know that? One more like, we do like the
I'm
council.
doing the pledge, so here we go. We're starting it.
That's right. That's right.
You just follow the agenda, basically.
I'm not in the chair.
You doing all right?
Making sure.
How are you? Good to see you again. How are you?
You?
Good, good. Thank you.
Hey, what's happening?
How you doing? Good to see you. Everything good?
Yes, sir.
Hello, how are you? How's
Good to
everything?
see you.
Good to see you. All right, and here we are.
Yes.
Where is our flag? Oh, there it is.
Here we go. So you put all that on your computer?
Yeah. I mean, maybe it's just I'm a millennial, but they keep giving us papers, and I'm like, can I get that?
No. I know. Hey, let me tell you. I figured that.
I still do mine electronically.
You still do that,
The council meetings?
Yeah.
I load everything up on there and I keep files.
Right.
But,
It's so much easier.
Yeah, I know it is. I'm a paper guy.
And don't let me stop you.
Oh no. I'm a paper guy.
See, I wrote up my.
I'm a nerd, I do both.
Okay, I have to hang in there with the people.
How you doing?
Yeah.
Yeah?
I did that, I knew he was wearing that. So.
That's the same.
Purchase them? Try 62.
I know. Togetherness is good, but you gotta.
Not too bad. Oh, yeah. Close. The mic on. I want to call our meeting to order this morning. If we'll all stand, I've asked Pastor Josh Kynes from the Parish Church to lead us in prayer this morning. That's going to be followed by Paul Eason, who's going to sing the Pledge of Allegiance. It's public record. We text that, right? He told me he was going to do it.
We'll hold off on that. Yes, thank you for the privilege of being here this morning and to lead us in prayer. Let's pray. Our gracious God, we come before you this morning as a representative body of your people here in Lafayette and Acadiana, Lord, to serve this community as you've called us to do so in our various ways and parts. And as we do so as a representative body, we understand that we first and foremost are representatives of you. And we need you to set our minds to that task this morning as this council continues its work. Lord, we're reminded from the psalmist in Psalm 33 that the Lord brings the counsel of the nations to nothing. He frustrates the plans of the people. The counsel of the Lord stands forever, the plans of his heart to all generations. And with Isaiah, Lord, we're asked questions this morning of ourselves as we engage to this task. Do you not know and do you not hear? Has it not been told you from the beginning? Have you not understood from the foundations of the earth? It is he who sits above the circle of the earth, and its inhabitants are like grasshoppers. He brings princes to nothing and makes the rulers of the earth as emptiness. Scarcely are they planted, scarcely sown. Scarcely has their stem taken root in the earth when it blows on them and they wither, and the tempest carries them off like stubble. Father, we come this morning in the humility of the call and the task that you set before us. Ours is a temporary task, yours is an eternal one. So we come as those who are represented to you asking for your wisdom, and you tell us that it's the fear of the Lord that is the beginning of wisdom. And so we ask you, Lord, to remind us of that, to humble us this morning as we engage in the work that you've called us to. We're reminded of the standards set by the Apostle Paul in Philippians 2, to do nothing from selfish ambition or conceit, but in humility to count others more significant than ourselves, each of us looking not to our own interest, but also to the interest of others, because we are to have this mind in us, which is also ours in Christ Jesus. It is the wisdom of God to reveal yourself to us in Christ, who did not consider equality with God something to be held on to, but he emptied himself. And the wisdom that you would ask of us today is to empty ourselves and to consider the interests of others, even as we consider the interest of ourselves, the interest of our constituents, as we consider the interests of others' constituents. Lord, grant grace. Maybe the hardest task and the call to leadership is that we consider not our own interests, but those of the others. So grant us that wisdom, that grace, and the humility that comes from us, from all that you have revealed to us in yourself. And we ask it for Christ's sake. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor Josh. Paul?
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Outstanding. Well, good morning, everybody. I think we've already greeted, but for those of you that are watching online or those that are assembled here, I prepared a letter. I think it was emailed yesterday. Most of you have gotten it. I was privy. I think we've been able to sit down and have conversations with most everyone and here. So talking about what is the texture, what is the tone, and of what we're doing. But in the letter I wrote you, I'm not going to read it. I don't want to bore anybody by reading a letter. But in the letter that I wrote you, I said, I'm very grateful and honored that you've asked me to chair the committee. I just ask that you be gracious to me as we go forward. I wrote that letter talking about the texture and the tone, and the first thing I talked about is the excitement, right? Personal. And my hope is that all of our conversations, and I don't want to be, though they're serious, we ought to have a great time doing this, right? There should be a journey. There should be some excitement in that. All of us have a little excitement. I think as a citizen, I express my excitement. I think that I bring a rather unique perspective here because I live in the unincorporated area of Lafayette Parish, and yet my family and I do not consider ourselves unincorporated Lafayette. We consider ourselves Lafayette. We shop in Lafayette. We work in Lafayette. We play in Lafayette. Our home has a Lafayette address. My business has a Lafayette address. My church has a Lafayette address. I'm Lafayette through and through. So I'm excited to engage in the conversation. I also talked about, as a commission, what we've been charged with. And my hope is that the texture of our conversation is going to remain open. It's one that's going to be fair, and it's going to be even-handed. And so everybody knows the direction, what we're leaning on here. I'm looking for solutions. This is a solutions-driven body that's gathered here. And I think, you know, our goal here is to identify and propose the solutions to those things that seem to be impeding the smooth collaboration of our existing government. Now, both, we're going to hear from Ms. Jan Swift from the Protect the City Committee today, and both the Protect the City Committee as well as Fix the Charter dealt primarily with changing the charter. It addressed the issues of consolidation and or deconsolidation. We're going to hear from them today, and as we move forward. But we're going to hear their perspective. But in large, we're looking to answer the specific question: how does Lafayette consolidation work, and how can it better work better under its existing charter? We're not just, this is not a deconsolidation meeting, right? We're trying to solve some issues here. But as your chairman, I want you to know that I'm committed to the integrity and honorable decorum of the process, and it stands to reason that all of us have come here with a personal bias. We're all biased. We all have a bias, and because bias is determined by the information that we've received, is determined by the associations that we share, and the past experiences that we've had. So all of us have a bias. The challenge or the ask of us is that we recognize, and that's the integrity of the process, we recognize that bias, but our hope is that we form a new group bias together throughout the experience as we're exposed to some new information, right? My ask is that we are patient in this process, that we are diligent in the process, because we're looking for real solutions to the real problems. And I believe that wisdom demands that we never apply a permanent solution to a temporary problem. So with that in mind, I'm encouraged and excited about moving forward in this process. I do have some business that I have to take care of, and it has to do with the House rules. So be patient with me as I sort of go through this stuff here. So let me make the following announcement. This is a public hearing, and if you are here to address the commission on any agenda item, you got to fill out a speaker form and submit the information to the clerk of court prior to the call of the agenda item, or you will not receive the opportunity to speak. Staff assistance is available if needed. The items for submission to the commission should also be handed to the clerk, which is Ms. Veronica Williams. She's seated all the way to the far left. When addressing the commission, state your name, please, as well as your title for the official record. The 3-minute rule is in effect, so when you do speak, it's 3 minutes. I'm not talking about those that are presenting today. I'm talking about public comment. This is not, I want to remind everybody, this is not a debate forum, so there's no debating or confrontational statements that are going to be encouraged or allowed here today. So The front row to my left is for the media only. Food and drinks are not allowed in the auditorium. And we'd ask that you now please silence your phones and other electronic devices. For us here, just real quick, I had to ask Ms. Veronica, can you give me a tutorial as to how to run the screen, the board, right? Kevin said I got your back. I'll coach you up. But I think it's pretty simple. So if you want to speak, I'm talking to the commission, you just hit that button that says request to speak. Pretty simple. When that happens, your name will go into the queue as to next in line. I'll give you the floor. You speak. When you're done, I would say, please hit the button that says done. So you're done speaking, and then we'll be moving on to the next person. I think we have any other announcements. This will be the time for any other announcement. And I think Mr. Will Thiel has the floor.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to start some dialogue and kind of inform the public that since our last meeting, I've been working on a website, LafayetteCPACommission.com, to kind of house all of our documents, our meeting minutes, our agendas, the links to the videos, a calendar of our meetings that you can kind of quickly add our meetings to your own calendar to alert you when we're meeting. The Protect the City Committee final report, ultimately when we issue our final report, all of that on LafayetteCPACommission.com. I haven't published it yet. I wanted to kind of bring it up before I go ahead and publish it. I in no way, and this is kind of a standard I was speaking with Bobby with, it's kind of a standard I have for myself. I in no way kind of put my own bias or my own opinion or any opinions of myself on it. It's just our public documents and as a service to the community so they can kind of follow along and we can be transparent with the community. If there's no objection to this, I wouldn't mind publishing it or opening the floor to more dialogue about it.
So, Will, you and I talked, we talked about getting a request from legal to say, hey, what are the parameters, you know, just an opinion. I was informed earlier this morning, after I spoke to you earlier this morning, Ms. Veronica, and please, Veronica, address me up if I miss anything, but it is totally permissible to do that. If we are using, like the URL, the website address is the commission, if it's in the name of the commission, then it does have to have whatever we're putting up has the approval of the commission, right? Sure. For everyone here, to make this as simple as possible, Will and I talked about what would be actually up on the site would be public records, right? Stuff that we're discussing here. So the calendar, what's the agenda, the minutes of the meeting would be there, maybe any documents that would have been presented here, et cetera, et cetera. So when I say official public record, I'm not talking about Will grabbing something somewhere else and interjecting without asking us. It's anything that would have been presented here, right? And so I'm in total agreement with that. I have no issue with that. Will's intent was right now that all that information is available, but you have to go through different sites to get the information. So if I understand Will's intent, it was how do I make this real simple? It's one place you go and contact. How do you contact us? It would just be real easy. So he's willing to. He's already done the work himself. He's paid for the site to put it up himself. I'm okay. So long as everybody else is good to go with that. And if Will agrees that we're simply going to keep this in terms of whatever you put up is public record, as we talked about. I got that stuff in an email, right, between us as to what will go up. And just run it by me.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're good? All right. We don't have to have a motion or anything to do that, right? We're good to go. Outstanding. Now, anybody else? Any other announcements? Kevin, you got anything? Anything? Brian? Oh.
Yeah, before you got into all that conversation, I was going to say everything's out there, and I appreciate you putting it all together. As long as it's, I'm fine with it, as long as it's all, like you said, public records and everything, that you just taking all of it and put it on one site, make it simple. I'm fine with that. Thank you.
I was just going to ask, is it possible to put a link on the LCG page as well? I mean, can we, like the link to his website? Is that allowable?
And we could look at that, but it would still be under where the CPA information on the council website is, because it's under parish council, and then since it's a parish council committee, so we could
But you
look
still have to
at
come-
that, yeah, just adding that link at the bottom, but it will be,
Still have to maneuver to get to that
manned,
point, yeah.
yes, sir, yes, ma'am. And it would be manned by Will Teely, and I suggest that you guys just share the information. You could use the email that we provided as well for the CPA. So, that's.
I'm just thinking if it can be put on the website, that
Yeah,
some
we
people
will. We
who
could
kind of
look at
can
that.
maneuver it easily and know what to go to look for
Right.
might be able to find it first and then assume that then we can go directly to the website after that, just kind of the initial, so.
Okay.
Yeah,
Hey, let me add one more thing, and this is really important.
oh, that's true.
This website doesn't contain any personal opinions, right? Anyone on this commission is allowed to express any personal commission or opinion that you have, but you're doing that on your own social media page, et cetera, et cetera. This particular, there's no personal opinions on this particular website. You got, it's information driven, right?
That's right.
The record.
Yeah, that's important too.
Outstanding.
And as he said, like today, you guys have two subject matters to discuss, two presenters. And as people give you information, you can add that to their presentation or any documentation. So today, after the meeting, those attachments could be added to the website as well as you go along, so people know too what you were presented with as they presented to you.
Good, outstanding, outstanding. Well, I'd like to recognize Ms. Jan Swift, who has graciously accepted our invitation to appear today. I had the conversation with Ms. Swift a couple of weeks ago, and so we talked about the intent of her help is to help us identify some solutions to the issues that might seem to be impeding the smooth collaboration of the existing government. I asked that she give her 20 minutes, so we have enough time to have some conversation afterwards, and preferably we can get out of here before lunch, because that brother just don't get hungry, he gets hangry right here, right? So, and I'm no good to anybody at that point. But so Jan, thank you so much for coming, and the floor is yours.
It's my pleasure, and thank you for this opportunity to present our findings before you. And I do want to say, Bobby, felt the same as you. I really enjoyed our committee, and we tried to keep it light. We didn't always agree, but we were all serving in the way that we thought we could best serve our community. I do have some of the committee members here, and I was thinking maybe I could give my presentation, and then if we could call them up, if that meets with your approval, for more specific answers to questions, because I appear before you here. I did serve as chair of Protect the City, but I don't hold myself out to be an expert. My husband this morning was trying to give me a pep talk. He said, "You're an expert." And I said, "No, I know what happened in our committee, but we only had a few months, as you will. And I think it takes years probably to understand how Lafayette Consolidated Government actually works." So we were given a task to show up, just as you, and dive into the issues. So I was asked first to share what is my Protect the City story. And I want to say first, I've been a City of Lafayette resident for 21 years in this stint. I moved here in 1983 after law school, and then in the late 80s moved to Hidden Hills out in the country north of Lafayette Parish. And we lived there for 14 years, my husband and I. And we did not have any kind of services to speak of. We had well water, we had our own sewage system. The roads, as you all know, in St. Landry Parish at that time were just horrible. I had a car I loved. One day it just fell into a pothole after many times, and the whole bottom just fell out. We had to use duct tape. So, to say the least, when we moved to town, which is something I pushed for years to get back into Lafayette, I was never so happy to pay for city services. Water that didn't turn my hair blue. Electricity. When the electricity would go out in the country, we didn't have water because the well was dependent on electricity. I love the city of Lafayette, but what I really love is that I knew when I moved in that we would be paying more in taxes, but we got value for it. And I just want to make that clear. So I've been a assistant city parish attorney, and I thought I understood the government pretty much because I had been paying attention some. But one day I read in the paper that the city council had appointed, that they wanted to appoint 7 citizens to study some issues about how should the city of Lafayette interact with the parish of Lafayette. And Nanette Cook called me up, and I remember I thought, what does she want, you know, and she asked if I would serve. And I really had to spend a few days thinking about it, if you remember, because I wasn't sure that I was the right person to even serve her district, but I just wasn't sure I wanted to do it because I knew it would be controversial. But I agreed to do it, ended up being chair, and I couldn't have learned what I did if it wasn't for all 7 of our team studying what was going on. So if that kind of gives you an idea of where I come from. What were the issues identified by the Protect the City Committee? There's a lengthy report. I'm glad that you're going to be posting things in an easy-to-find site. I had trouble finding it, too, in LCG's site. I had to go back and look at my notes about how do you get to it. So I think that's going to be a community service, Will. We came up with a few basic decisions that 6 out of 7 of us agreed on, and some of us agreed on all these conclusions. First of all, and we were asked to answer 14 questions, deconsolidation would best serve the interest of the city of Lafayette. So just take that as what the report says, and we'll get into more detail. We all agreed that the city of Lafayette would be better served having its own mayor. The city council should establish a separate operating account into which city tax dollars and parish tax dollars are deposited. Currently, the parish, as you know, will transfer money into the city operating account, and then expenses are paid. I don't know if this has been changed yet, but this was based on our report. So we found that to be something that could be just clarified, just to show a city account and a parish account, and then a third operating account where expenses are paid based on allocations. We also felt that the city, parish, and/or LCG should enter into intergovernmental agreements with each other when engaging in joint services. That way, it just clarifies who's spending on what, who's getting the work. If it's going to the parish, that's fine. Let's have an intergovernmental agreement. Same thing with the city. We just thought it would clarify things. We also heard, which has been kind of controversial recently, we didn't directly study whether or not the city of Lafayette should have its own police chief, but with the controversy, it's come out that, you know, a lot of the citizens that came to our meetings, when we held like several citizen meetings at night, it did kind of drift up to the surface that we should elect our own police chief. I'd like to dive a bit deeper and talk about some of the main issues that we found. The big issue, and I know for me, and you can hear from my committee members, but we just have a lack of autonomy. The city of Lafayette doesn't have its own autonomy. So we heard from people, you know, Ed Abel and others that had been involved in the original deconsolidation effort back in the early 90s. Lafayette had 63.4% of the population, which is a majority. From what I've learned since, it's not a great majority, but everybody thought that this was just going to be a way to save money. And Lafayette was the crown jewel at the time. I mean, Scott was so little, Purvis, you know, it was just a small town at the time, and no one anticipated the population shifts. When we did our report, we had 2019 census numbers, and we thought that Lafayette was at 51.2%. But now we know with the new census that there's only about 500 more people in the city of Lafayette than like the rest of the parish with all the towns and everything. So we're at 50.2% of the parish. There's no reason to think that this trend will turn around. There's just been explosive growth in all the towns that are now cities in our parish. And so while Lafayette is holding its own, it's only grown about 9% since the 90s. And as an example, Youngsville has grown over 394%. Now, Youngsville was small to start with, but Lafayette overall is not growing. The city of Lafayette is shrinking in its population compared to the rest of the parish. Now, what that means is that soon more people that live outside the city of Lafayette than live inside will elect our mayor, the mayor-president. And that one person is the one that appoints the police chief, really presents the budget that talks about what the city parks are going to get funded, the police and fire. That one person will have the authority, even if they're not either a City of Lafayette resident or don't even have the City of Lafayette interest at heart. But what happened for me was when I sat here and we listened over a few months, it never occurred to me until I was on this committee. It just never occurred to me that residents of Broussard, Karen Crow, Dussault, Scott, and Youngsville, they don't pay City of Lafayette taxes, yet they can control the election of our mayor. Now, I can't, as a City of Lafayette resident, tell Scott or Broussard or whatever how they should tax, and you see how they're passing taxes and improving their park system. People there vote to pay for things because they know they've got control over their elected officials. That's a good and a bad thing if you're elected. But as a taxpayer, you want to know that your elected officials are accountable to you where you're paying taxes. Just as I have no say-so on how those towns run their business, I shouldn't. And so that kind of drifted to the surface. We just don't have we don't have control of our own destiny in Lafayette. And I want to say something too. A lot of people think that this has been political. You know, while all of us don't agree with the current administration, we're never going to agree with any administration. We're going to have people that do things. One day we love them, the next day throw the bum out. But overall, I believe in democracy and majority rules. But what rule of majority is that if the City of Lafayette doesn't elect its own mayor? So that, for me, out of all the stuff we're going to talk about, that was kind of my core issue. I thought it would be taxes and stuff. It was really about my beloved city, just as other people have, you know, live out in the country or live in other towns. The next thing we looked at was budgeting. While both the city and the parish collect tax dollars, we learned that expenses are allocated based upon varying formulas that swing from year to year. And we were given about, I don't know if it was 22 or 27 different allocation formulas. I never really got it. Some years, like from 1996 to 2000, the city paid 60% of the cost of consolidated government, and the parish paid 40%. And then later, from 2001 to 2005, the city paid 82%, the parish paid 18%. Then it switched back to where the city paid 83%, the parish paid 17%. And then it kept on going up. From 2009, the city paid 84%, the parish 16%. And then when Mayor Robideau came in, and I think this has happened since, the city pays between 78% and 82% each year. We never really understood how these allocation dollars came about. One of the reasons was, while the rest of Lafayette Parish has really outgrown the city by huge margins since consolidation, Lafayette is a smaller percentage of the total population, but yet its share of the cost of consolidation has either gone up or remained the same. And the parish, on the other hand, for, gosh, the past 25 years, have paid about $4,400,000 to the city general fund. I think in 2019, they paid $4,391,000 something. I think they've only paid about $6 million once and haven't done that since 2013, yet the parish's growth has just been phenomenal. And that's in population, what I'm talking about. So while all these justifications we heard about from different experts may have made sense from accounting principles, you know, again, I'm just showing my lack of understanding. I just don't get it. It just didn't make sense to me how one year it could be this percentage and the next year a wildly different percentage. So we did look at all that. So we were asked to come up with proposed solutions. So we recommend, and it's been done so far, the city council has done this. We recommend that the city and the parish councils convene a charter commission to study deconsolidation. I'm going to go back to that word, and to present a plan that returns self-governance to the city of Lafayette. As parish citizens, and again, I'm an attorney, and I'm very concerned about our parish jail, our courthouse. Of course, we all have drainage issues. There are so many things also that the parish needs to have protected. And I know that's why you're here, to make sure that anything that happens protects the parish. But we all live in the parish. We all live in the parish. Nobody wants to see anything happen that would be adverse to the interest of the parish. And we also think that the parish needs to have sufficient resources because it's also suffered under consolidation. We came to hear just from people testifying, excuse me, my throat's a little scratchy, that the parish, in fact, hasn't gotten the attention that it needed because of consolidation, the way that it works. Are there any solutions outside what we found in our report? I personally, and we haven't voted on this as a committee, so I'm just giving my thoughts. I believe that a solution can be found to create functional consolidation of government. Lafayette can be given the right to elect its own mayor. It can have its own dedicated booster, if you can use that term, to really promote the city of Lafayette quality of life issues, such as our parks, selecting our own police chief, or having it elected, having the police chief elected. Whatever would happen, we just believe that I believe that there can be a functional consolidation of services. We just wanted to see that city tax dollars are spent in ways that make sense to city residents. And if the person in charge of the city isn't doing what a majority of the city residents think, that person can get the heave-ho, and another election is held every 4 years. But the way the trends are going, that's not going to be the case for Lafayette. And in closing, I guess you hear what I'm saying. I think there can be other solutions. I don't want to speak for my cohorts. I think the parish would be better served by either having a parish president or even a parish manager appointed and overseen by parish council members. It's done different ways, and it's up to a community as to determine what works for them. This would also ensure that parish tax dollars are spent judiciously. And then they could also focus on parish-centric issues. So in closing, these are tough issues. 30 years ago, I don't think anybody thought that consolidation would end up as it did. I think at the time there was a belief, there wasn't a plan in place though, but there was a belief that taxes would be raised to help cover parish expenses, and it just never happened. And nobody really dreamed that Lafayette would become smaller and smaller in proportion to the rest of the parish. But here we are. It's been an honor to stand here. I'm not sure if I answered the questions you wanted me to, Chair, but I'm honored to be here. And if you guys have questions, if you want to talk to the rest of the committee that's here, we thank you for that opportunity.
Hey, thank you, Ms. Jan. And absolutely, I'm sure we would love to engage in a little conversation. So, and the rest of the committee that's here is welcome to join you if you feel better, or you can just call on them, Jan. How about that, right? All right.
Are there any questions?
I'll yield to Brian.
When y'all went through did y'all, I know y'all talked about what the allocation, and that's something I want to work on. I think we did it in one of our budget meetings. We solved one of them with the IT department, which I think it's only 5% of the budget that we need to look at. And I agree, we need to have some science to it and, keep it, if it's right, it's right, if it's wrong, it's wrong. But one of my questions is, did y'all ever try to figure the cost it's going to cost if we do consolidate to the city? Because what's going to happen, the drainage millage, roads and bridges millage, it's all parish money. And from my understanding, that's about a good percentage goes to the city. Right now, we don't give to the unincorporated, to the municipalities, we don't give any money unless we want to. And I'm assuming that's going to be the same thing there, we deconsolidate. So that's going to be a tax increase. You're going to have to get that money back some kind of way. That, and you got 20% of the administration costs are shared. So those costs that are going to, did y'all look into any of the costs, what the cost would be if we deconsolidated to the city? Did y'all do any of that?
That's a loaded question. First of all, only 5% of the budget is $30 to $50 million a year. So while 5% seems small, the actual dollars are huge. because we have a big budget. So I want y'all to remember that. We had limited resources, as in $0, and we had 14 questions to answer, Brian. So we were not even able, and that's why I wanted some of my cohorts here, we weren't even able to get information about how dollars are spent now. Like, there's no tracking that we could find. We had our finance committee, chaired by Mark Pope, met with the Parish, the Public Works Department, and they don't track where work is done. They don't track the cars or the work that's done. So we were not able to get basic information to know what was going on, much less come up with a proposed tax. But really, that was beyond our scope. We were asked to answer questions, what about the city's interest? And then we knew there would be more discussion. And so that's like a higher pay
But
grade.
was it realized that there will be a tax increase? I mean, it's going to have to make up for that money, in my
We
opinion.
don't know that yet.
Yeah.
You may be right, but we don't know that.
Yeah.
Because if we're not splitting expenses anymore, if there are intergovernmental agreements that determine who pays for what, it may be that there is no need for taxes. We don't know that. I mean, honestly, we don't know. I'm not trying to put my head in the sand.
One of the things I want to do in this, it's going to bring, in one of our meetings, we'll have the CFO come and give us those numbers, so we'll have those numbers, so you'll know what that number is. When you subtract that out of your budget, you'll know if you need to, that'll come later on in our meetings, so.
But from the parish perspective, it shouldn't matter. If the city votes
Well,
for
I
something
also
like
represent
this.
city people too. I'm not just, I represent people in this
Right.
city of Lafayette too, so I'm looking at that.
I just wondered, if we need more information. I'm hoping that your committee can get that information. I'm hoping that's part of the scope of your work. We weren't really given access to a lot of information, and the mayor, the one thing we got was drafted April 16th after we had just met once or maybe twice, and he had a rebuttal to everything, and we were meeting through August. So we didn't really get information that we could have used that maybe would have determined some of that.
Well, I'll have that information. I'm going to get that information on this committee.
They'll probably share it. Hopefully that will be forthcoming.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
This is Tag Catalan and Stuart Bro.
Yeah, Stuart Bro, I was a member of the Protect the City Committee. I would only add to what Jan said. I think she said everything perfectly, but that the parish is a parish-wide drainage district, so its responsibilities are to provide drainage, all of the various channels that are on the parish drainage map, provide maintenance of those channels. So that is ultimately a parish function. We've seen additional revenues going to drainage through tax increases and things already. I don't think it's fair to say that either the city will have to increase taxes to pay for its own drainage, or that the parish shouldn't cover that. Regardless, ultimately, that's a parish function.
Thank you. Why don't you just hang around? When you talk about an expert.
And Jan, you want to introduce the Protect the City Committee members who are here? I see Tag, who is the
Tag
Vice President,
Catalan, Stuart
Vice
Bro,
Chair.
Mark Pope. And where's Bill Linedecker? I thought Bill was still back here. Bill Linedecker. And then we also had Tina Sheldon and Roddy Bergeron. There were 7 of us.
Jan,
Yes, Kevin.
great to see you, and thank y'all for being here. On everything that you just said, I understand where Brian's going, and I guess I want to put this into a little bit easier perspective. One of the things we should look at is, in what ways did the city of Lafayette benefit through consolidation? And Mayor Purvis, who was Mayor of Scott and also sat in my seat, will tell you when he sat in this seat and when he sat as the mayor of Scott, the only one that benefited through drainage projects was the city of Lafayette, because you were married at the hip. I understand what Mr. Bro's saying, that, yeah, it's a parish function, and we should still obligate and do those projects within the city of Lafayette. But when you look at the amount of drainage money pumped in by Broussard, Youngsville, Scott, Karen Crow, and Dusson, they didn't get diddly squat. So as much as it is a function of the parish to provide those drainage projects in the city, if deconsolidation were to happen, there is no guarantee, no entitlement that says the parish has to continue these projects. So this city, as much as it's lost autonomy and this and that, first off, there are probably some crucial benefits that did help the city in certain avenues that the other municipalities didn't get the help in major projects. Road expansion and on and on. The thing that I guess I'm looking at the things you brought up: city-owned mayor, elected police chief, IGAs, budgeting, parish manager. I think all of those things are in the same scope. I don't think you have to blow up the word deconsolidation. I don't think you have to go that route, because once you find out exactly how you have benefited through consolidation, as much as we think you have failed tremendously, you have some upside to being under consolidation in a lot of different ways. And that's what we need to dig out for people to understand. It's not as bad as we think it is. The things that want to be addressed by the city of Lafayette, I think you can accomplish every one of those things right here. I don't have a problem with you having your own elected city mayor. I agree with you. The city has to have a mayor and a parish president elected by the whole parish, but you don't get to vote on who's the mayor of Scott, and you don't get to vote on who's the mayor of Youngsville. I get that. So yes, for me personally, I agree 100% with that. I've always also was a fan, unless somebody shows me otherwise, why wouldn't the city want to elect their own police chief? I can't understand that. I think that's a good thing. In regards to the city not growing, I mean, you're landlocked. But the city of Lafayette has joined all the other municipalities annexing from the parish. You know, when we look at things like that, we've lost revenue through the city of Lafayette annexing just as much as the other municipalities. And I remember when Joey at the time tried to reach out to the local mayors and come up with this annexation map where, like, okay, you can annex all of this and all of that. I mean, truth of the matter is, and Mr. Purvis would probably tell you, is as much as Scott would love to annex everything west and Doosan would love to go get it, that puts more tax increases on those people.
Right.
So the dream of it all being annexed and there's no unincorporated area, I don't think it'll happen. I'll be dead and gone. I don't see it happening, because those people that live in those rural areas, they don't want to pay any more taxes. So I think what your committee aspiration for having autonomy, I agree with you. I agree with the mayor. I mean, a lot of these things here, I think we can get there, but I don't think we need to blow it up, because I think you're going to find out through Laurie or find out through drainage projects and everything else that the city has obviously had some upside to being to the parish. It hasn't all been negative. Parish manager to oversee that, I like that. I think it gives the parish its own autonomy as well. It allows those people in the municipalities and the unincorporated area vote on who they want as their parish, right? So you got to figure those things out. But look, and the other thing too, I don't want to say taxes or whatever, because I don't know what would actually happen. But we have to ask ourselves, as a city, a resident of Lafayette and a parish resident and a Scott resident and Doosan, you have to ask yourself, if we truly want to get this parish with the best roads, the best schools, the best everything, right? Why you moved from the country to the city, you knew you were going to pay more, but you expected more services. In order for the parish to run 100% sufficiently with our jail needs, our courthouse needs, all of the things that we have, you have to ask yourself, are we on this commission, or you the people, if it came down to it, are you willing to pay more taxes to have your autonomy? Are you willing to pay more taxes to have better drainage projects? Are you willing to pay more taxes? That's not for me to answer. That's to say, hey, if we come down the road and it shows somebody, somewhere, somehow, may have to look at increasing then is that where we want to be? Or can we stay consolidated, get all of the wins, and keep the taxes there? I mean, obviously, that would be a home run, right? Everybody
Yeah.
would love to fix it and not have to raise taxes. But we have to see where that comes to. And then if it does come to that, is this commission and is the public going to get behind the commissions, both Protect the City and this committee, and say, hey, we support your idea, and you know what, I'm willing to pay an extra $150 a year just so we can have everything that everybody needs, so we can be the best parish. You know, that's my perspective of everything. I mean, it's going to take time to get there, but I appreciate everything that your committee has done, and, you know, my goal is to work with you guys and work with everyone here and come up with a solution. But I will say for the record, I don't think blowing up Consolidation is going to fix it. I think you can fix all of these within the current structure. Need some legal help and some mumbo jumbo, but I mean, I think it can be done. Thank you.
May I respond?
Yes.
I agree with you. And I find you, I didn't really know you, Kevin, until we worked on Protect the City, and you really did inform me about the drainage issues in particular and what goes on in the outlying areas. If this was a black and white issue, it'd be so easy, but we all have benefited, and I think we've all not benefited from certain aspects of the current form of consolidation. My hope is that the city of Lafayette, while we're landlocked, we can go up. And that's what all those smart city experts come up with. You may not agree with all the planning ideas, but if you can go up, you got more tax base, and you use your land. You've already got the infrastructure there. You don't have to build new roads. You might need more sewage capacity, but you just go up. Everybody benefits. You know, who doesn't want to live in a convenient spot that's centrally located? Oh, I mean, I guess some don't. I've enjoyed it. I live right by UL, and man, I can just about walk everywhere I really need to get. There are 4,130 counties in the country, and we didn't really study this, but I'm thinking of Brian's question. Very few, like, I think it's maybe 41 in the whole country out of 4,130-something, have some form of consolidation. And most of them, the city, like Louisville or Nashville, they pretty much are the parish. You know how Orleans is city and parish? They are the county in those places. Louisiana's got this weird hybrid, and, you know, East Baton Rouge Parish isn't going too well. Everybody wants out of the city of Baton Rouge for various reasons. And then the other example besides us is Houma Terrebonne. Houma hasn't grown, and the parish is thriving, but the city itself is dying on the vine. And that's what I'm fearful of with Lafayette, if we don't get some fix, some functional address of what would be needed. But I think, I really love this discussion. I'm hoping as y'all move forward, people can be more informed. Because if they're just wondering, well, this isn't going to work or it's going to raise taxes, we won't get to know the real facts. And you guys are in a great position to pull
Jan,
this off.
I have a question. So did the Protect the City consider, did you ask what are the benefits? How have we benefited from consolidation?
We answered the 14 questions we were given in the resolution. Our goal was to kind of look and see, you know, what's not helping Lafayette. And I can pull up. Do you remember? I don't think we had any that would say, define the benefits. Was that one of the 14? No. I don't think that was one of the 14. We were just given a task, and we, you know, kind of answered the questions. And this guy knows more than anything.
I think, all right. Who was talking here before? Somebody pretty short. No, I think we did examine, you know, has the city of Lafayette benefited from consolidation? And our answer was ultimately no, largely looking at the metrics of growth and the way that the allocation formula has varied wildly over the years in a way that just is totally seemingly arbitrary. What, you know, Mayor Durrell had claimed in a budget message that we were subsidizing the parish. So, I mean, we did conclude that the city has not benefited from consolidation.
But we weren't asked to specifically
Gotcha.
identify, you know, that. So
Thank you. Thank
had to
you.
go back through. We had quite a few questions to answer.
Thank you, Chairman. I would first of all agree with everything that Mr. Nakhan said. I do believe that the city of Lafayette did benefit from the public works consolidation, because we did, we were getting majority of the money. Most of the work was being done in the city. And so I guess moving forward, to follow Mr. Tabor's directive, as far as we need to start tracking that, at this point, we need to ask what those numbers are. Because I think the real rub is just the allocation formulas. I think that was the main thing that was bugging City of Lafayette residents. Why are we putting so much more money into this? And I think if we were able to track it better, we would probably maybe understand why. And then, we mentioned it, Kevin mentioned functional consolidation. If deconsolidation, blowing the whole thing up, is not doable or not something that would work, I do think that we could do the functional deconsolidation if we were able to track the numbers more, to understand what was being spent where, and actually determine what the city of Lafayette is responsible for, what the parish is responsible for, and like every other municipality does with public works, if they need something in their city themselves, they do an intergovernmental agreement. And so, we separate public works into an LCG column, and then if there's some kind of agreements between the city, and I think that was already mentioned, something between the city and the parish, so I think it's just a tracking issue. I think it is really just an issue of where we can be more transparent so the public can understand where the city dollars are going. But I do agree with the fact that we have benefited with the public works consolidation, because the majority of those public works dollars for drainage and those necessities that the city of Lafayette has needed, has been provided by that particular drainage millage. So again, I think we're getting to a place where we all understand that there were some benefits of consolidation. There's still some questions as far as the growth of Lafayette and how it was affected by the consolidation, and maybe by looking closer and tracking better where the dollars have gone, we might have a better understanding of, okay, how can we make those adjustments? Like you said, 5% is $30 million. I mean, that's a pretty good little chunk of change. So maybe the allocation formula would be adjusted so that some of that money could come back to the city, and we do it differently. So again, like I said, I agree with everything that Mr. Nakhan said in terms of, we have benefited as a city, but I do think that we need to move forward and look at, exactly, dig a little bit deeper, and hopefully this committee can dig a little bit deeper and find out what those numbers actually are. So thank you. Thank you again for all your work. Thanks for coming today too, y'all.
A lot of the questions that came up with funding of issues, I know the city council had wanted its own attorney, so that, maybe figure out what are our rights, when does the parish council have to approve city expenditures, et cetera. And so those were things, as we sat on the committee, we just learned more and more that a lot of it is just the allocations and how do you take control of city tax dollars.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I want to go back to Brian's earlier question, and I think Kevin touched on it too, that if we were to deconsolidate, we would have to raise taxes in the parish. Is that what you were saying? In the parish? In the city? Okay. Okay. Okay.
Gotta go to the gym.
Okay. Okay. So if this is about the allocation formulas, with our existing form of government, could the city council not pass a resolution that simply says, we are not going to use, we do not support the non-dedicated tax revenue allocation formula any longer? So we don't get to budget negotiations and we get to the last step and you can't rewrite the entire budget at this point. If they were to pass a resolution at the start, so the administration understands don't use that allocation formula, they're never going to support that budget, would that not help try to get the allocation formula component of these issues fixed in our current form of government?
And they could just not vote on the budget. I mean, they could just refuse to vote on the budget and have to go back and, but without knowing how some of the money, it's not tracked. from year to year. And we were told that. We had other experts too I didn't bring up. One guy came in from New York, and we'd been told the allocations were set by the experts, but he said that he hadn't even worked with the city or the LCG since 2016. So yeah, I mean, to answer your question, I think the city council, and you guys would know that, Nanette and others, better than I would, but they could pass that. That wouldn't fix some of the other issues, thank you, that we raised, but it would get the budget negotiations on a more even keel, I think, between the city and the parish.
And then the other issue you raised that I wanted to bring up was the city autonomy and electing its own mayor. When we get to a mayor-president, if we get to a mayor-president election where the majority of people are voting don't live in the city of Lafayette, so whoever person is elected, it's questionable if they are the city mayor of Lafayette. Did your committee consider at all if that's legal, if that would hold muster in a federal court, or would the federal court blow up our form of government for us because we've veered off in such a crazy direction with consolidation?
We didn't address that in our committee. I did joke with George Lewis that a private citizen could just probably sue and say this is an unconstitutional form of government.
Right.
Because it is not a democratic form of government for the city of Lafayette. And it's such a hybrid. Nobody else is really doing exactly what we do. It kind of stands out. Once you have the facts, you see that. It was all done with good intentions. But I think it's unconstitutional, but I'm not a constitutional scholar.
Sure.
You know.
And then this will be just my last point. So if somebody is in favor of consolidation, wouldn't it be reasonable that their best course forward is for the city of Lafayette to have its own mayor, so no federal court blows up our form of government and says, no, go to a normal traditional government, a normal city, county and city form of government, because this is crazy.
That's a rhetorical question, I guess.
I suppose. Thank you.
Yeah. I get your point, though. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Jan, for all your information. And listen, I agree with everybody, what everyone has said so far. I sit kind of as an oddball, as sat on this council, sat as the mayor of Scott, worked with a lot of issues. But, when you deal with the issues, when we talk the numbers, we don't include, it's kind of hard to include the municipalities in the number of the parish people, of the unincorporated areas. Because the small communities are doing great. There won't need to be a tax picked up on anybody in a small community because they're doing great. But if we address it, how do we fix it to make sure that we're talking about only the people of the unincorporated areas? Because that's the one that's suffering. That's the community that is suffering in the parish. That's the drainage issues. That's the road issues. That's those issues. So how do we pinpoint that? Because me and Kevin have spoke about it a few times, and he talked about it earlier. I mean, all municipalities are growing from the parish side. They're taking property out of the parish. They're building up their communities from the parish. We did it in Scott. It's lawful to do it, no problem, nothing wrong. But how do we protect those people that are left out in those islands? As Kevin said, we all seen Joey's map at one time. They wanted to consolidate the whole parish. Not going to happen. I mean, that's very, very costly to many, many communities that just,
Right.
Scott, nobody
Can't
wants everything.
They don't want that.
Okay, nobody wants it. So the idea of it is how, when we address as we speak, do we make sure that we're speaking about the people that are in need of the parish, the unincorporated parish. So when we talk the numbers about how the parishes are growing the city, okay, we're talking about the numbers of the municipalities and the unincorporated areas of the parish. Okay, that's what we're talking about. We're not talking about strictly the parish. So that's where I come and I kind of look and I read and try to grasp and to say, how do we make sure as we move forward? Because if we're talking parish taxes and we're putting that parish tax on the citizens of the municipalities and the unincorporated areas of the parish, and those people have to vote, it's never going to pass. that rescue is never going to come. That help will not come. So how do we continue that? How do we fix the opportunity for the people of the unincorporated areas of the parish that we're talking about? Now, we talk about, listen, I agree with, even when I sat on this council, I hated to vote on city things because I represented most of the parish. I had a few people that I represented in the city, but I hated to vote on city issues way back then. I didn't feel that we needed to be involved with that, okay? But how do we make sure that if we're going to have, because you said it earlier, the Lafayette is part of the parish. So we vote for a parish president or a parish manager, Lafayette will vote for that person also, right?
That's right.
Right. So that has to be looked at. I mean, because it's never going to be strictly the parish going to have their own and the city's going to, I mean, I agree, you definitely need a mayor. I mean, I really believe that. I mean, there's no reason why the city of Lafayette should not have a mayor that takes care of the city. But how do we make sure the people in the unincorporated areas of the parish are taken care of in this whole scheme of things? Because I think sometimes we talk about, and we get confused, and we talk about those little communities. Those little communities, under no law, have to give up anything. Nothing. And they're doing very well. Thank God. And they contribute to the city. You know, I used to tell it to Joey, and me and Joey would laugh about it. He said, I'd say, Joey, when we come from the parish or the small towns and shop in Lafayette, we leave you tax dollars. Okay? And he said, well, yeah, perfect, but when you go to Disneyland, you leave money there too, you don't get it back. And he's right. He was right about that. But, okay, so, I know the allocation numbers are kind of wacky or some things of that nature, but if you look at the whole premise, look at the dollars that are being contributed from outside that's coming in. So maybe that could be part of the allocation, all right? I mean, we are spending money. We are. So, listen, I think we just need to, and I think we're going down the right direction. I think y'all did a wonderful job. I read y'all report. I think y'all did a wonderful job in bringing those things to light. I think so far the committee is bringing some very good questions and going to dive into some things. But I just want us to make sure that when we talk about those things, we got to understand that the unincorporated areas of the parish are basically the ones that's going to be the ones that's going to recoup which way we go. They're going to be the ones that's going to have to deal with the way we go, because they're the ones that's going to be out on that island.
The conundrum, at least from my perspective, is there was a tax election for the rural fire protection.
Right.
And I don't even know the details about the districts or whatever, but I know other parishes in the state, they'll have districts that look at specific services. Because, let's face it, people don't want to pay taxes, but they do want the services.
Right.
But when that pass was raised and then it failed, that was a tough one for me, because we pay for tax protection, and yourself, Scott, Karen Crow, all the municipalities, they're not really reimbursed
Correct.
what it costs to go put those fires out.
Correct.
When I lived in
Correct.
Hidden Hills, we had the Grand Prairie Volunteer Fire Department, which was nowhere near my house. I knew if our wooden house caught on fire, I better get my jewelry, which wasn't much, and my wedding album, because I was SOL.
That's right. I was shocked also. I mean, because we definitely supported it with Kevin and went around and tried to get people to understand that they needed to support this, because it really is an issue. And you're correct, the small towns picks up that bill most of the times. And like many other things, a lot of people in the community thought, when we had the parks in Scott, still do, they thought the parish was paying to benefit the park. But we were paying to benefit the park. The city of Scott. We decided to increase and build a new concession stand. We didn't ask the parish to put any money in, because the citizens of Scott needed that park. So, it was a lot of times that money has been spent in things owned by the parish, that the city, if we don't spend it, talk about drainage. If we don't fix the channel that runs through the city of Scott, we don't participate in fixing it. Because, as Kevin said, we didn't get one penny from the drainage tax, not one penny. So if we didn't take care of that, and then after we got it, even though we got a grant, and we got it repaired, but in the wording of the parish would say, from that point on, you're going to maintain that channel. We couldn't maintain it the first time. So how are you going to make us maintain it now? But if we want the grant, we have to agree to that we will maintain that channel from now on. So you have a lot of communities that would say, you know what, well, we're just not going to take it because we have better chance trying to get some funding from the parish or somebody to help us pay for this. Because we're talking about Illicon, what, Kevin, 5 million, 6 million? Just a what, 2-mile stretch?
Yep.
You know, I mean, those things are very hard to come up and come by for, you know, the towns to do. And the tax dollar doesn't come. I mean, that doesn't come.
That was on a Gustav and Hurricane Ike that we pulled.
Yeah, that's how we was able to get that money, you know, through that process, which the parish was very kind in letting us go out to get it and didn't rebuttal, but they controlled it. You know, so, you know, I just think we just have to, you know, make sure that, I mean, the small towns are doing great.
What's the cost?
But, you know,
We're going to have to answer the question, what is the cost?
what is the cost?
And so I don't want to be, you know, too forceful, but I am mindful of the clock. And so I know, Kevin, you're up.
I'm going to be short.
Okay.
I guess, and William, and let me just clarify, when I say we need to look as a whole as far as for tax increase, I'm not talking about roads, bridges, and drainage. You know, the one thing that we're not talking about that didn't get talked about in y'all committee was the obligation by everybody in this parish to have a sufficient jail and courthouse and judicial system. When you talk about where the parish is bleeding money, it starts with we're taking out of the courthouse complex fund to meet state mandates for our current jail. And what I say by that, when you look, whether you look at deconsolidation or you don't, moving forward, this parish, unincorporated, Scott, all of us have to look at, are we willing to fix the parish in that aspect? Because that affects the city of Lafayette. Because if your jail's falling down where it's at, it's in the middle of the city of Lafayette, your courthouse is insufficient. You know, that is an obligation by everybody. Do I think you can fix these things here and not raise road taxes, drainage taxes? Yeah, I think you probably can get there. But at some point, the city of Lafayette and unincorporated area and the municipalities, if they arrest people but you have no place to put them, I mean, that is everybody's obligation. That is not just a parish council obligation or just a city council or just a city mayor. I mean, that is everybody. So when I say potentially, when you look at, are we willing to pay more? I'm not saying roads, bridges, drainage. I'm not saying that. I'm saying the real problem lies is people in Scott, Dusson, Carencro, they use that courthouse. They use that jail. If we as a parish don't fix that and get it where it's self-sufficient, we're going to be in worse problems than a city autonomy. You might have your own autonomy with a jail that's crashing right there and you can't do nothing about it because it takes everyone to fix that. So keep that in mind as we go down the road when we talk about what affects the city of Lafayette through this process too, you know? Okay, I'm done.
Thank you, Council.
Since those taxes were, you know, we had a courthouse tax that was brought up several years back. I mean, since all these taxes have failed, it's a bugaboo talking about taxes, but yet again, we all depend on these services. If you go to the East Baton Rouge Parish Courthouse, it's the Taj Mahal. I go there sometimes with my work as an attorney, but it costs a lot more to file there. A succession costs a lot. But boy, the marble, and it's almost too much, but it's gorgeous, you know.
Right.
But I asked the judges here, why don't y'all at least power wash the building? Well, they can't.
Because the window's going to blow out.
The windows will blow out.
Absolutely.
I mean, how ridiculous is that?
You can't
Because my
wash.
husband, he's like, why don't they just get a power washer? I'm like, well, then you got new problems.
Yeah.
So yeah, you all bring up stuff. Thank you for letting me share my thoughts. Some of these are just my personal thoughts. I want to make clear that what we agreed on, the majority is in that report. My words, many of them are my words, and I don't want to ever speak for other people. So.
Which, by the way, I asked, Jan, I said, I want to hear from you. We want to hear from you, right? Not just the committee. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Tim,
all of you. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Jan. Sorry I was late, guys. Got detained a little bit, but I got a couple observations here. I've been just sitting here listening. You know, I constantly have heard, I was one of the first people under consolidation, or first administration with Walter. And it keeps coming up that it's unconstitutional. Now, we're how many years later after consolidation? Has anybody contested it in court? Has it been ruled unconstitutional? Or I keep hearing that coming up. I'd like to know if that's ever been challenged from the time that it was initiated to where we are today. Just curious. I mean, because I keep hearing it. I hear it in the streets. Oh, it's unconstitutional. You can't. It's illegal what you guys are doing up there. And no one's ever brought it to court, from what I've heard. That's one observation. We keep talking about a mayor. We have a mayor. We have a mayor-president. That's what Consolidate brought us. Mayor-president. That's what Josh's responsibility is. And then also, as we all know, we can say we won around the table until the voters vote on it. We really can't do anything. We can make suggestions and recommendations, but our citizens make that decision for us. So those are just a couple of observations that I have just sitting here listening. And, you know, I was out of touch for a while doing my work, but I'm back involved now. But I just kept hearing this, you know, unconstitutional stuff. I'd like to know if it's ever been challenged. Does anyone have that answer?
I don't know, but we can request the information, right?
Okay.
We can ask legal to tell us, right?
Well, I
Have
mean,
we ever
that's
been
just an
sued?
observation, you know.
Certainly about the vote. Yeah,
Right, but the
outstanding,
bottom line is, it's the voter who voted people, right?
outstanding. So again, Ms. Swift, thank you, Jan, so much. What a pleasure, right? What a pleasure. I feel like I'm in church. I want to applaud the speaker, right? Like, thanks for, it's just part of the deal. Thank you so much. So, of course, we have next, Mr.
Just remove Tim from the floor, so his mic stays, so his mic's on. Look, just hit the, give the floor to the next. There you go. That way if he tells me something.
Gotcha. Shut that mic off right there. So we have with us Mr. Mark Pope, and he also served on the Protect the City Committee and has offered a dissenting opinion. And so wanting to keep this thing even-handed, I wanted to hear the other side and the experience, just like Jan had an experience. I wanted to hear Mark's experience. We wanted to hear Mark's experience as well. So, Mark, thank you so much for graciously accepting the invitation.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, Chairman, Pastor Bobby. I'm honored to be here. I got a lot to say, so I'm going to talk fast today. Background, Mark Pope, born in New Orleans, moved here at 7 years of age, Lafayette resident ever since, public schools, trade school following high school, marginal student high school. Said, you know, I don't want stained hands and be a plumber all my life. Went to UL at 25 years of age, got my master's degree. Shortly after that, find the ideal job with Lafayette Consolidated Government. Actually, it was Lafayette Parish Government back in 1990. Started in the environmental division, was there ever since. 27 years, I loved it. I loved public service. So, there you have it. I got to respond to a couple of things that were said. Will said, will the federal government come knocking and saying it's unconstitutional? It's a states' rights issue. The federal government is commingled in our business more than they should be. It's a states' rights issue, okay? Louisiana Constitution. The budget you talked about, $530 million. For the city side, $70 million from the parish side. It's roughly a $600 million budget. That's sales tax and property taxes combined. Looking at sales taxes, the city collects with its 2-cent sales tax about, give or take, $80 million a year, discretionary money. The parish, with its 1-penny sales tax, collects around $5 million a year. One of the things that was said to the city committee, the Protect the City Committee, when we were asked, give us an example of city money being spent in the parish. No examples ever came. The only example was, well, the city fronts the parish the money and the parish pays it back, okay? So what else? Money is spent in the small towns. Look on the previous budget, drainage money. Page 314, capital improvements, Cooley-Ildacon, $1.25 million. IGA, intergovernmental agreement. Anselm Cooley, back from 2019. If you recall, Mayor Ritter said, I'm not signing this. It has a clause that says we, Youngsville, will maintain Cooley Anselm or Anselm Cooley in perpetuity. I'm not signing it. Joel Robideau changed the language in the intergovernmental agreement. I don't recall the cost on that, but it was a chunk of change. So, you know, it's the wrangling back and forth in politics. The political leaders have to come together and agree and decide, if you will. So, I'm going to try to follow what I was asked to do. I'm going to give a critique. Look, my intent is not to call anybody out. I will use a few names, but I will not call, I say what I mean and I mean what I say. And I try to be tactful. So I'm not going to give you a lot of fluff talk. I'm going to tell you what my experience was, both with the city committee and my 27 years as an employee here in this government. I learned a lot. Over half of my career, I was in management. I understand the budget. Is it complicated? Doggone straight it is. Okay, so here we go. Critique of Protect the City. It appeared, based on my observations, that the fix was in to declare the deconsolidation of city and parish governments an urgent necessity. An example, before the gavel fell to convene the first meeting, one committee member turned to Pat Lewis and said emphatically and succinctly, "You got my vote, Pat." Continuing the review, there were no significant discussions among committee members about information provided to the committee about what speakers told us. The speakers told us what they told us. There was no questions came to the speaker. There was no interaction. One example, one speaker who served in the government said there was a moratorium on annexations when consolidation began. Incorrect. There were nearly 200 annexations. Now, did they slow down? Yes, they did. But that was a totally inaccurate statement. Robert Benoit, Mr. Mayor Guillory's chief of staff, came and corrected the record. He said that's incorrect. And we never had the advantage of anybody on the committee using their knowledge to debunk. And it's kind of rude, if you think about it, for us to say, "You're incorrect, sir." But he was. I knew it as soon as he said it. There was no discussion among committee members about the 14 questions spelled out in the City Council resolution which established the Protect the City Committee. Examples, question number 2, how can the City Council best protect the ratepayer-owned Lafayette utilities system? That question makes no sense to me whatsoever. The Parish Council has no say whatsoever in Lafayette Utility. What are you protecting? You voted, the City Council voted to move utilities to the City of Scott. Who's paying for the infrastructure? I never heard that question. I was here in the meeting for that City Council meeting. I'm not sure. Maybe that question did arise, so scratch that comment on my part. But the point is this. The question makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. Question number 4 stated, has consolidation lived up to the promises made in 1992 when it was voted on? There were no promises made. There was a scramble to come up with a dollar figure toward the end, right before the vote. How much money will we save? Well, about $5 million within the first couple of years when you eliminate positions. And it is true that not a whole lot of positions. You had 2 public works directors, bam, now you only got 1. You had, and there's a couple of few examples of that. Community development, which Tim served in under Walter Como. You had a director under the city. Guess what? And this comes up later in my talk. There was no community development department under Lafayette Parish government. And I'll tell you right now, because it bears repeating, part of the problem is with cost allocation, the parish should be paying its fair share. Wait a minute. Legal entity, the city with consolidation, the city of Lafayette retained its legal entity. Lafayette Parish government retained its legal entity. What does that mean? Property they own, buildings they own, and they built departments and programs that they started, they retain, and debt, big kicker, debt. The city of Lafayette retains all that. Lafayette Parish government retains that. So why should Lafayette Parish government ask to be paying millions of dollars toward community development? It never had a community development department. But wait a minute, you're playing with the big boys now. You got to pay your dues. It doesn't make sense. Parish government was but a shadow of what the city of Lafayette was. It was drainage, roads, bridges, not a whole lot more. And we're trying to make this comparison that, quote, the parish isn't paying its fair share. More to come on that later. Numerous speakers who addressed Protect the City were asked, give us an example of city tax dollars being spent outside of the city. Did I say this already? I don't know. I told you I'd be talking fast. Yeah. No examples were given. Yes, I said this, and excuse me for being repetitive. City punt. A quote expert on the Lafayette. I'm going to name him because you read his information. Jeff Daly, the current. Jeff Daly said city money being spent in the parish. Dulles Drive. I live right off Dulles. It's about 0.6 of a mile. The last 40 yards of that road, they're making it 3-lane all the way down. Turn lane, underground drainage, both sides. The last 40 yards is in the parish of Lafayette. The 1961 penny sales tax can be spent outside of the city if it benefits the city. So roughly 8% of that project is using city money spent in the parish. Daly used that as an example of city money being improperly spent in the parish. He's incorrect. And he had the audacity to say that LCG engineers design roads in the parish so they can spend city money in the parish, to which I was very disappointed and really offended. Really, Mr. Daly? What meeting did you sit in and you heard the engineers say, hey, let's do this so we can spend some city money in the parish? I'm disappointed and offended because I have ownership of this organization. I worked for it for 27 years. I sat in management meetings in Public Works, and I saw great lengths being taken by engineers to not do what Mr. Daly claimed they were doing. Without any of the discussions I just mentioned internally, the majority opinion just suddenly appeared, written by 3 subcommittee members, the drafting subcommittee. We never discussed what would be the majority opinion. It just suddenly appeared. We had no internal discussion. So once again, as my perception, the fix was in to declare deconsolidation an absolute necessity. I personally believe there are inherent operational and financial efficiencies built into consolidated government. I saw it through 27 years as an employee. By the way, in 1992, when the vote happened on consolidation, city government and parish government were working together. I was always in the environmental division. I found out about chemical collection. We called the first one, Bring It Back. I got with an employee at the city of Lafayette. We both got the blessings of our managers. And so Troy Naka and I came up with household chemical collection, 1992, Hyman Performing Arts Center. That's consolidation. That's city government and parish government working together before consolidation. And the first time we did that, we got no charge. The company said, we want to show you what we can do here. And it's been a huge success ever since that first one in 1992. City government came to me in the environmental division of parish government, says, man, we got an overload of this compost stuff. Can we come and stack some of our compost or pile it at your barns? And we said yes, and it disappeared like magic. And so the city was able to keep their stockpile of compost to a minimum by bringing it to barns, the remote sites of Lafayette Parish government. So we were working together back in the early 90s. The notion that the parish is not paying its fair share is largely predicated on budgets submitted by the Durrell administration to the City Parish Council in 2012 to 2016. It took Mr. Durrell, who I like and respect very much, took him 9 years to use his words, the stars aligned. It was a perfect storm. I had an epiphany that, quote, the parish wasn't paying its fair share. I'm going to repeat what I said a little while ago. What Mr. Durrell was asking the parish that never had a community development department to pay for the Hyman Performing Arts Center, city-owned facility. He asked parish government to pay for the Lafayette Science Museum, city-owned and operated facility. He asked Lafayette Parish government to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars for Lafayette golf courses. Lafayette Parish government never owned a golf course. They never built a golf course. So why are they being asked to pay millions of dollars for what are city services? The legal entity of City of Lafayette remains. The legal entity of Lafayette Parish government remains. So my point is simply, I think it was faulty. When I heard it, when I read the budget message back in 2012, I said, oh my gosh, what's going on here? So now consolidated government is an exclusive club. You want to be a member of the club? Step up to the plate and pay 50% of the cost. It doesn't work like that. City police, no-brainer. Parish money does not go into that. Fire department, no-brainer. Parish money doesn't go into that. I believe some one-time money was moved from a millage, Kevin, and that's used to pay city fire departments when they respond outside of the parish. Seems to me like it's probably not even adequate. I don't know that. But the point being, police, for sure, no parish money goes there. Fire, minimal amount of money. Both city and parish governments, I already told you that, retain their standing as a, quote, legal entity. They retain responsibility for assets, buildings, property, and debt. Big kicker that they brought into consolidated government. Leaving out what city and parish governments were at the time of consolidation presents a misleading and distorted perception of what each government's fair share should be. You've got to look back at what parish government was when it was consolidated. When I was on the city committee, I came up with, there were about 60 employees in the city of Lafayette for community development. Guess how many with the parish? And there was no official department. 2 people, maybe 3. Got grants from the federal government for a little bit here, a little bit there. Lloyd Rochon, who was clerk of the council, served as the housing director under parish government. He actually, for a little while, from my understanding, wore 2 hats. He was parish clerk, and he oversaw the housing program for Lafayette Parish. 60 employees versus 3. And yet Lafayette Parish government is asked to pay, maybe not pay half of community development, but pay a largely substantial part. It's not right. So I reject what City Parish President Durrell proposed in saying that the parish wasn't paying its fair share. Okay, part 3. I'm not going to get through everything in 20 minutes. In 2014, the centralized planning of Lafayette consolidated government began to fundamentally transform Lafayette by employing a massive influx of groupthink. What does all that mean, Mark? 2014, what was it called? A planning director, chief development officer was hired. The city parish council agreed with Mr. Durrell and socked away money. So these folks who had no expertise, here are the names. Miss LaBar, Carleon LaBar, and Kevin Blanchard were instrumental in trying to fundamentally change Lafayette. They were told, give me the latest and greatest comprehensive plan. We can't use our local planners. We can't be original here in Lafayette, Louisiana. We got to go to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Wallace, Roberts, and Todd, planning firm out of Philadelphia, $1.2 million. Oh, but wait, Mark, you're not being fair. We had public hearings. The public accepted it. Nonsense. It was led by trained facilitators. It's called the Delphi method. How do I know this? Did I attend? No, I knew I couldn't attend. My frustration would just, I had two very good friends attend these, and they said, Mark, it was unreal. These people were good. You ask, here was one of the questions. Somebody, Bobby, you mentioned right before I got up here, we got to ask, how much does it cost? They're listening to all these grandiose plans. We're going to do this, we're going to do this. Lady stood up and said, this all sounds great, but how much does it cost? You know what the response was? Oh, no, ma'am. We're not talking about that now. We're dreaming. We're dreaming. Okay, Lafayette is losing its originality. Mr. Guillory came in, Miss LaBarre didn't win. It looked to me like the deck was stacked. Fix the Charter was Miss LaBarre and Mr. Blanchard were deeply behind that. They were no longer LCG employees. Why? You got to ask yourself, why? Why did they leave? Well, I love my community. Why didn't you stay here where you could do the most good if you truly loved your community? So, I told you groupthink, $1.2 million to Wallace, Robertson, Todd. The Unified Development Code, I never got a price tag on that. My guess is it's way over $1 million. It was an instrument to implement Plan Lafayette. So what's your beef with Plan Lafayette, Mark? Why are you so against it? Well, a lot of the things that it brought us, I thought I had it written down here. Yes, bike paths was the first thing, federal money. How do you implement a smart city? You go pick money off the money tree, federal government. There are smart city initiatives. Well, it didn't cost us anything. I probably won't have time, but I have an example. Millions of dollars, wasted money, that it won't cost us anything. We got to get away from that notion, folks. So first thing we saw pop up were bike paths. Yeah, I knew I'd run out of time. I've not heard a whole lot of response. I'm all for recreation. I ride my bike and staying fit and so on. Mixed-use buildings, business on the ground floor, residents living above. You save some urban sprawl. I understand that. What's the reasoning behind that? The sustainability model says, well, you don't need a car. You can ride a bicycle. One of those mixed-use, the old leather pouch off Johnson, it has no parking spaces. Mixed use, they want a business on the ground floor and the people living above, so you don't need a car. You can walk or ride your bicycle. It's the sustainability model, folks. Mandatory recycling when I was an employee. I had an employee who put in nothing but 6 weeks of hard work on trying to mandate recycling. It's not something you mandate. I complained, I got no response. It was a waste of time. 35 options to mandate recycling. Why? Because it fits the sustainability model. It's in the Plan Lafayette, Wallace, Robertson, Todd. I'll wrap up on this one, I promise you, although I had quite a bit more to say. Some of the other things studied under Plan Lafayette and the sustainability model, we're going to ban plastic bags in Lafayette. It didn't make it too far. It didn't get off the ground. But it was a serious discussion in a meeting. I had to bite my tongue. Another discussion in a meeting around Plan Lafayette, Project Front Yard, and the sustainability model. Let's bring mealworms into Lafayette. What? Mealworms eat styrofoam. This was a serious discussion, folks. A lot of time and a lot of energy. Why? Because it fits Plan Lafayette. And I'll end it with kick it to the curb. One of the biggest disasters I've ever seen in my whole life. Government-caused disaster, not a natural disaster like a hurricane. I don't think Kevin was on the council. He can tell you about it. But it was, again, to promote Plan Lafayette, the sustainability model. I told them, please don't do it. They did it. It blew up in our face. And our council got a whole lot of calls from a very angry, unhappy public. So I had quite a bit more to say, but I will tell you this. If you haven't read this report, I went to special links to make it short. My report is 9 pages. The majority report is 36 pages. I have something there were about 4 pages in the majority report about annexations and the growth of Lafayette. I think about a 4-page paper on annexations with the true facts. Youngsville, 394% growth? Yeah, okay, I can live with that. Guess what the growth of Lafayette was, city of Lafayette, since it became a city? That growth, 394 since Youngsville became a city. Actually, 4 or 5 of those years, Youngsville wasn't a city. 1,300% population growth versus 400%. So we're not looking at that. The point is, the city of Lafayette grew from 1960 on. We're a mature city. Our limits to expand are limited. Youngsville is a young city, as is Broussard. They have more room to expand. I'm sorry I went over time.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mark. Really appreciate you. Appreciate your passion, and thanks for coming so prepared. Just thought it was really important that we hear both sides, right? So this is it as well. Ms. Cook?
Thank you, Chairman. I just have a couple of things, and Mark, thank you for giving us a lot of the history up to this point. I'm looking at maybe more currently, within the last couple of years, one of the questions that you posed was that where has the parish been, or the city been putting money into the parish? Well, about 2 years ago in budget, we kind of discovered that there were city millages from the park millage going into the parish. And so since then, we've corrected that. We've done those corrections, which I applaud the current administration for allowing us to make some of those changes. So those things have been brought to light because that was happening, but now currently, we've drawn that line. So now the city knows what they're responsible for, and the parish they've taken care of their parks as well. So I do think we've addressed that. As far as the community development, you were talking about how there was nothing for the parish. Currently now we have the department called Park, and within Park is the Hyman Performing Arts Center. So we have, the arts and culture within that, and then basically community development covers what it did before, planning, and then the grants. And so again, that's another kudos to this administration for having seen that, what needs to be done with that, and separated those. And the other issue that we talked about, and we've asked this, and I hope we can actually get these numbers, is the parish, basically, pays the city back for certain things. But I would like to be able to track that somewhere in the budget as well, because we had asked that question, and they assured us that the parish does pay us back. But we had a hard time finding what those numbers were and where that was, what fund was that put in, that kind of thing. So I think, I'm not saying it's not happening. I think, again, for transparency, it would be nice to see where that money was going. So again, thank you for, you've got a lot of historical knowledge, and I appreciate you sharing that with us. And hopefully we've learned from history, and we're moving forward and making some changes that we need to make. And so I'm hoping we continue to make those changes that we need.
It's a challenge. Look, roughly, the city of Lafayette residents pay a parks and a recreation millage. I think it's about $4 million. And there is no dedicated money to Parks and Rec from the parish. Now, they took some one-time property tax money, moved a small percentage from, and dedicated it from parish sales tax. I don't remember what revenue, probably one we're going to renew on Saturday, which, by the way, I encourage anybody watching, please go and vote yes on all the property tax renewals. It was probably the public health mill, took some of that, and it was, I don't know, I remember a couple $100,000, and gave that money from a parish millage to Parks and Recreation. But I don't recall if parish residents have ever had an opportunity to vote on a Parks and Rec millage. I'm not sure. I know they voted down the fire protection, which absolutely, like you folks talked about, it blows my mind.
No, and we know what those tax, like look at Youngsville, look at Broussard. They did have an opportunity to do a property tax, a tax for recreation, and look what facilities they have. And so I think that was kind of where we started going with our little city millage that we have from the 1980s to see what we can do to improve ours. So again, I think we're moving in the right direction, and I think, we're all going in the same direction with this, and that's the hope. So so again, thank you again for your information.
Unless other questions come, what I did bring, I wanted to wait till the end. Bobby asked me to put down some thoughts, which I did. I have 4 points under suggestions / recommendations from me for the City Parish Alignment Committee. Look, when I came in with an open mind, I truly did. And own mayor, I understand what Tim's saying, but I think it's down here. You don't have to elect a parish president. You can have a parish administrator or a parish manager. Also, I'm going to tell you, think about this. It doesn't make sense to me. Scott, Karen Crow, Broussard, the small towns were asked in '92, hey, you want to participate in this consolidated government? Every small town said no. Then why should they get to vote for our mayor president? Well, they pay parish property taxes. But wait a minute, they have representation. Brian represents parish residents. Kevin represents parish. They have representation. So it is not taxation without representation. And it doesn't make sense. And I didn't know what Jan said about the census. It's now, the city of Lafayette only has 500 more residents than all the other residents combined. That doesn't make sense, folks. That doesn't make sense. And I just think that the size of the city of Lafayette, it could benefit. So I reference here Article 6, Part 16. I'll tell you this right now publicly. I reached out to John Paul Cousson. You have people who work on committees in state government who can put you in touch with the experts who understand all the ins and outs of how a consolidated government can be formed. I'll be glad to get you that information.
Thank you, Mark, and that is our goal. Mark, I still have some people in the queue that might want to be able to ask you some questions. Will?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Mark, for your thoughts. You just started touching on it, and that was going to be my question to you is, with our discussion with Jan, we talked a lot about the city of Lafayette having its own mayor elected solely by the city of Lafayette residents. Your discussion today was mostly on community development, taxes, where's money being spent. I'm trying to build consensus here. Are you in favor of the city of Lafayette having its own mayor voted exclusively by city of Lafayette citizens?
Maybe. I'm in favor of exploring it and all the options and how will they work. I am open to it. And I came in not being opposed to it and not thinking I favor this. I came in with what I think was truly an open mind. And as I heard speakers and read, I read hundreds of pages, folks. I read the original Lafayette Parish Government Charter, original city charter, all the amendments, all the other research papers. And as I went along, I said, yeah, that is a little bit scary. If more people outside of the city of Lafayette are voting for the, quote, mayor president, because there can be a conflict in what the city of Lafayette does and what the parish. Not necessarily in that where, let's put it this way, you have to work together.
Right.
The conflict is you have to iron out the wrinkles and work together.
Thank you, Mark. I would hope that the confidence of our voters would expect that our mayor president would not self-sabotage, that he would be the guy to consolidate all that. Mr. Purvis.
Go ahead.
You finished? Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No,
You were done?
That was my only question.
Okay, all right. Mark, just wanted to ask you, the Elder Con, you kind of threw me with that one. What year was that they spent money in Scott with free?
2020, fiscal year 2020, 21. 2021.
So in this budget here?
Page 314 of that budget.
In this budget here?
No, sir.
Oh,
It's
you put
last
some money
year's
in?
budget. We're in the 21-22 budget.
Okay. So you put a few dollars in it, Kevin? I had to help him out. Okay, all right, okay. I just wanted to make sure, because I know the account runs through Lafayette.
We're 10 days into this new fiscal year.
I just wanted to make sure. And you talked about the LUS thing trying to go into Scott.
Yes, sir.
Tell me about that.
They're expanding electrical services into Scott, and I don't know, Nanette would recall better than me. My question was, who's paying for the infrastructure?
Well, I know at a previous, the council meeting, it was rejected to let LUS come into Scott.
I thought, it seemed like it was
And
tabled
it
for a
was a
reason.
subdivision that they were looking at off of North Dugal.
Yes.
That kind of ended up in
Yes.
Scott, not in the heart, but that was rejected. The city did not.
It ultimately died?
Yeah, the city did not,
Okay.
Scott did not allow it.
Scott didn't.
That's correct. Okay. So just wanted to, touch you on that.
Yeah, and I guess it was kind of a rhetorical point, Purvis, because but my point is, I don't understand that as one of the 14 questions in the city council resolution. How best to protect the ratepayer-owned Lafayette utility system? What are you talking about? It is protected. You're kind of implying that there's some problem and somebody's trying to attack LUS and take it over and damage it. And I think it was, I don't know, poorly written or at best poorly written and possibly misleading. And was that done purposely? I don't know. I'm not that cynical.
Thank you. Mr. Tabor?
Mark, I just want to thank you for coming, and I need to correct you on one thing, bro. There's nothing wrong with being a plumber.
That's right, Ace Plumbing. Ace Plumbing. No, I did. I went to trade school for plumbing, worked at, got bounced around. Maybe it's too bad I didn't go to work for you. I might be a master plumber now. I got bounced around because it was during the, I believe in Lafayette. And so I think I worked for 4 different plumbers. Oh, by the way, Purvis, you know Steve Guidry probably, is he still with us? He was mayor of Scott. He was my boss. He was a plumber. And he'd go, hey, Mark, I'm gonna stop in here at City Hall a little while. And he'd come out 40 minutes later, I'm snoozing in the truck.
I think you passed him.
Yeah, I think so. He was in his late 60s when I worked for him years ago.
Ms. Cook?
Yeah, I think I want to address the LUS question. If I understand, part of the issue has been, we've been giving water and we've been giving, services outside of the city of Lafayette. And LUS pays for the infrastructure, but the services are charged at twice the amount normally that you would pay in the city. And so I think, that's been happening for years. And I think as of now, we're currently looking at maybe not being so nice and doing that as much as anymore, if at all. So I think that's probably what that question was related to. How do we protect LUS in terms of not providing services outside of the city? Even though, the justification was, well, they need it and they're going to pay twice as much for it, it's still a matter of the infrastructure that, we have to put in. So, the cost benefits, and then and then also, they're not paying city taxes because they live outside of the city, so the city taxpayers are paying for the service, through their taxes as well. So, that's probably what they were referring to in that particular question. So, I mean.
And thank you. And that's my point. Again, not to be overly critical of my colleagues, but I think to have the discussion on the Protect the City Committee would have been most beneficial, because I looked at that and I said, what the heck are they talking about? And we never talked about a single one of those 14 questions. And I was scratching my head saying, when are we going to bring this up and talk about it? And then out of nowhere, bam, the majority report appears and addressing the questions. And I thought, okay, but that's a good point. Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna ask the $1 million question, and it's a good one. If Mayor President Guillory was not elected, are we having this discussion? Would we want to throw out a Carly or a Carlos Harvin? Would we have done that at that time? I served under 2 parish presidents. I served under Joey Durrell and Robideau. And in 8 years, we have never had this discussion. As far, deconsolidation, but I'm just food for thought. Nobody got an answer. I'm not looking for no answers or questions. But I'm happy we're going down the road to figure this all out, but one has to say, would the public, would the city of Lafayette want to change it had a different person got elected? Think about that for a second.
Let me, can I, on my sheet here,
I have to answer.
I hope you guys, I don't.
Water. Let's let Ms.
Okay, I'm
Cook
sorry.
answer.
I just have to respond to that, and this is personally me speaking. This is my second term on the council, so, and the first time as a split city parish council. So, I've learned a lot in terms of, as we split, more the differences between what the parish needs are, what the city needs are, and who's paying for what. So, to say that it has something to do with the current administration is not that's not my agenda. I believe that it's a matter of looking at to see how both can be more efficient, and I think it's been brought to light more because of that split. The community has the city of Lafayette, your residents have said, well, okay, wait a minute, when we started working on the parks and find out that the millage was going out. So I think we're becoming more knowledgeable about what actually consolidation has done. While it might have been successful at the beginning, it's not as successful now. And so I think, I hope the current mayor president, if we do elect a mayor, I hope he runs for that seat. And I'm assuming he will. So to me, I think we need to remove that question because I don't think any of us are doing that for that particular reason. I think we're trying to represent, I know as a city council member, I'm trying to represent my constituents better in terms of their dollars and where it's going.
I agree with you. That's not where I want, that's not, my intention is this. I guess in the perfect world, if everything was working perfect, right? In the aspect of maybe administration as a whole and the councils would be working more aligned and everything, everybody's getting what they want, would we still look to break it off? I guess that's where I was going. I'm not saying, I'm not saying anybody here or in the public is trying to sabotage anything. I'm just saying, I guess in the perfect world, if everything was smooth, there's always going to be a problem, I guess is what I'm getting at. No matter who you elect or what, you're always going to have some disagreement. That's all. I'm good. And
in a perfect world, yes, I think we would still be having this conversation, even because we are learning more about what's happening, with the government. And actually, what's a perfect world? And this is not. It's not perfect right now. And I'm not saying that we can make it perfect, but more things have been brought to light in terms of what's happening with our dollars in this particular arrangement. So I think that's really what we're looking at.
And I think we're going to get those answers, right? We're going to find those answers, all right? Because we're going to pursue, hold on, Mark, stay with me. Mr. Thiel?
I just wanted to add to that point that personally, I campaigned in favor of the Fix the Charter amendments. I thought it was the right move. I don't think they're perfect, but I thought it was an improvement. And I can tell you the doors I knocked on, the people I talked to, and this is before COVID, so you could knock on people's doors and talk to them. They asked me that. They asked me, why don't we split, if we're splitting the councils, why aren't we splitting the mayor president? Like, honest question, like, why aren't we doing it? And this is before either candidate won the mayor president role. So I choose to believe that we would be having these conversations regardless of who the chief administrator was.
Cool. Thank you, Mr. Will. Mark?
Bobby, I'd like to mention that on the sheet, I don't know if Joseph has passed them out, but I gave you a sheet with, I told you, 4 suggestions or recommendations. One of the big problems with the current charter is section 5.04. I did a pull quote from it. It says, here's the buzzword, talking about amending the budget. If a line item of the operating budget or component unit of the Lafayette City Parish government that is funded solely by the city, what is solely? To me, it's 100%. Mark Pope is solely making this presentation. My brother's not here with me, my neighbor's not here I am solely making it. So if it's solely by the city of Lafayette, that's 100%. And then I go on to give the example of our favorite topic, community development. The city's paying 99% of it, and the parish paying 1% of community development, this particular, I don't know if it's a whole budget or line item, and yet the parish can cut the city off from making an amendment because they pay 1% of the budget? That's not right. So the language has to be changed. That's as I see it. I see a big problem with section 5.04. I give you a suggestion. It should say primarily or anyway, I suggest a word. But the point being, depending on what the city pays and the parish pays, there have to be parameters or limits as to how, if the parish pays 20%, they should be limited in how much they can amend that particular budget. So anyway, you guys got your work cut out for you. Good luck.
Hey, again, thank you, Mr. Pope. Thank you. Really appreciate you taking your time out.
Thank you, Mark.
To come in
Thank you.
and share with us. Hey, so, woo, I was thinking, are we going to make it? I don't want to fail my first task, and that's like, we're close right now, you know, so, we had a goal for it to be done by 11, so I'll stand. Yes, we do, right? Yes, we do. So now it's time for discussion, open comments from the public. So Joseph, do we have any?
Yes, we do. We have Mr. Bill Leindecker, who signed in to speak.
All right, Mr. Bill, I just want to remind everyone, we're talking about topics that are related to the City Parish Alignment Commission. And so again, I just want to remind everybody, let's honor the intent and decorum of our assembly, and so stay respectful, no debating, confidential statements, all that stuff. And listen, I am asking this. I don't know if you're the only one, but we are asking this. If you have a question that you'd actually submit it, that this is because you have 3 minutes, right?
Gotcha.
Just for efficiency, stuff like that. So. Chair yields.
All right, thank you, Bill Leindecker. I'm a resident of the city of Lafayette, and I was on the Protect the City Committee. First of all, Mr. Natke, I want to tell you, as a city resident, I would 100% pay more taxes to have more autonomy, without a doubt. Okay, number two, it doesn't matter to me who the administration is. If I can get everything that every other city in the parish has, that's what I want, okay? So the city of Lafayette has not been whole for 25 years, okay? Not been whole for 25 years. It needs to elect its own full-time exclusive mayor. It has to have a fully functioning independent city council free from influence from outside the city. The city needs its own separate and distinct legal department. And the City of Lafayette residents only need to be able to decide if their chief of police is elected or appointed, just like everybody else in every other city in the parish. That's all I want. So I'm really hoping that you'll be able to deliver that. I don't see any reason why you can't. You can certainly recommend it, but that's what I would like to see. So here's a scenario for you. Mr. Eason and Mr. Tabor live next door to each other. Mr. Eason lives in the city of Lafayette, and Mr. Tabor lives in the unincorporated area of Lafayette Parish. They both need some landscaping work. The rest of you don't live near Mr. Eason and Mr. Tabor. Some live in the city, some live in the unincorporated area, some in different cities of the parish. Mr. Eason and Mr. Tabor select the landscaper, and the total cost for labor of the landscaping project is $1,000. However, all of you get to vote on how much Mr. Eason and Mr. Tabor will eventually pay for the landscaping labor. It is decided that Mr. Eason is going to pay $800, 80%, and Mr. Tabor will pay $200, 20%. Mr. Eason and Mr. Tabor need the work done, so they both agree. Mr. Eason and Mr. Tabor meet with the landscaper after the work is done. Mr. Eason wants to make sure he's received his $800 worth of work and asks the landscaper to account for how much time he has spent on his property. The landscaper is unable to verify or document how much time he spent landscaping Mr. Eason's property. The landscaper says, I just estimate how much time and effort I spent on your property. I can't tell you for sure. I don't track my time. Mr. Tabor, wanting his money's worth, asked the landscaper how much time he spent on his property. Landscaper's reply is the same. I can't tell you for sure. I can only estimate. I don't keep records on how much time I spend on individual clients. I just do the job. Okay, so if you would allow me, I'm going to give Joseph some information I'd like you to find out for me, and it deals directly with what this committee is all about, okay? What I'd like to know is the number of LCG employees that are, that are compensated, paid salary by both the city of Lafayette and Lafayette Parish. How many are there?
Yeah, Mr. Bill.
Yes.
We would love to receive that from you.
You got it.
And Joseph, if you make sure that we get a copy, and we really appreciate that. Thank you so much.
They were
Mr.
apparently
Bill.
building an apartment complex in between us because
Yeah.
Mr. Tabor and I have a lot of new neighbors.
And I've got to go back because I'm substitute teaching at Cathedral, so don't guess there's any questions. My email is there. Joseph has my phone number. I would welcome any opportunity to meet with any of you.
Thank you, Mr. Bill. Appreciate that, appreciate that, appreciate that. All right, all right. Hey, so our next meeting is scheduled, I'm sorry?
I think Mark.
Oh,
Trying to get your attention. Mark. Hey, so really quick. I gave Joseph a copy of an analysis of the $14.7 million drainage budget. It's 2 or 3 pages. It's pretty easy to understand what funds, where do the funds come from. It was paid 95% by parish government. Another one of my complaints with being on the Protect the City, I was told, I put in hours of work on this, I was told it's not factual. Nobody confirmed it. I said, did you check the math on my numbers? It's on 3 pages in the budget book. So you may want to look at that.
Thank you.
And it may be instructive to, as you study things.
thank you, Mark. And Joseph, we got that too, right? You're going to hear that out to us, right? Even if you email it, I don't know, because.
Joseph's good. He got it.
Yeah, folk might have to run, right? I'm trying to catch everybody.
I don't want you to get mad, man. Go ahead, end the meeting, man.
Let me wrap this thing up. So our next meeting is scheduled for December 8th, 9 a.m. Talk a little bit about the agenda. Here's my thought process, and again, I'm just kind of putting it out there. Jan opened up with a comment. She said, it takes years to understand how LCG government works. Right? Years. Well, Kevin said we ain't got years, but look, my hard drive runs a little slow, and like so, Mr. Tabor, Mr. Nakem, it's Nanette. I just we need time to catch up to be able to process, right? So it might. I would suggest that we would categorize however long it takes us, and of course I know we have only 5 more meetings after this. But we've been encouraged, if we need more time to ask, that it would be granted. But I would say we categorize this in 3 areas. One, I need to know the history. I need to know the story, right? So it started for me with the idea, I needed to know the findings. What was the story, the city parish, protect the city, right? But I'd like to know about fix the charter. I mean, Mark brought up Kevin and Carly. I know they were an influence behind that, and I'd love to hear from them, right? So you started, now I just want to hear the story.
Kevin Blanchard,
right?
make sure you say Blanchard, not Kevin.
Oh, sorry, Kevin Blanchard, right? And then,
That we've enjoyed, I mean, very informative with a lot of facts and numbers and stuff, so it was good stuff, so.
yeah,
Anxious
he's
to hear from him.
well, he's letting us know, because we've gotten 2 emails, right? Lengthy. So maybe, I would just say, right? I'd love to hear about the initial move to consolidate 1992, right? From those guys. I'm getting secondhand information. And then I'd like to maybe phase 2, well, hey man, how does the existing government work? I don't know, right? So we bring in legal, help us dissect this charter. Tell us how this government works. How does the relationship work with the other municipalities and so on and so forth, right? So we can hear from them. I'd love to hear from the administration, like those guys, Citra, right? Their hands are on this work every day. And then the last phase, I'd like us perhaps to talk about, so no matter what, all the information, and we're looking for solutions, right? Like a recommendation here, or that's all it is a recommendation. I just want to remind everybody. But I think we got to answer what's the cost, right? So whatever we recommend, we have to weigh what is the cost of any proposed solutions. What are the far-reaching consequences or the effects? I mean, we are changing. The idea would be that we're amending changes to government. I mean, the law that governs us, it's far-reaching, right? And I think we'd all agree. We don't want to be 30 years down the line saying, like 30 years, well, I wish we would have thought about that before we got started, right? Yeah, well, yeah. CFO, yes, yes. Yep, I got Lori on my, yep. Yeah, so I got Lori there too.
The allocation we're trying to learn.
Yeah, the allocations, right? What's the formula? Show me the formula, right? Show.
Do we bring the auditor in at the same time?
That's a possibility. Look,
CFO?
of course, you guys understand, anything we do, I'm working between now and then to put out the invitations and stuff like that to get them come. But yes, I have no qualm with that. I'd want to hear that. I'd want to hear from the auditors as well, right? I want to know that. So,
You start with the administration first and then bring the auditors. That would be the sequence of it.
Fix the charter?
I'm good, Tim. I want to hear from the administration, right? But I'm looking for, I need a picture of the history of this thing. I don't have it.
Well,
So,
I spoke to Lloyd Rochon this week. and
Lloyd?
He was a big part of it. I asked him, I told him, so we may be calling on him to come in. He's more than welcome to just give me a
awesome,
date.
awesome. So what if, again, I'm just putting it out, right? My thought.
Weber agreed to come.
Right.
Glenn?
I talked to Glenn Weber.
So maybe next time I'll put an invitation, and let's see if Kevin Blanchard and maybe Carly would come, and so our next meeting will be around fix the charter, right? And then maybe,
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think so.
Right, that's
okay, so both of them would fix the charter, and then we get somebody to come and talk about original consolidation.
The original. That's correct.
Maybe Glenn or somebody like that,
I
right?
mean, Glenn was in the midst of everything. I mean, he's the one that pretty much ran it.
Okay, outstanding.
And look, if you got to, you can always go from 9 to 11, do lunch and have them come back at 1 o'clock if y'all got time. If you give that long. Because you got 5 meetings. I know you're gonna get hungry, but I'm just saying. I mean, there's a lot of information to soak.
Kevin, I just don't get hungry, I get hangry, Kevin.
All right, bro.
I don't want to manifest. So, outstanding.
Motion to adjourn? Yeah?
Yep. All right, meeting adjourned.
All right.
All day.
Hit your mic.
Good job, good job. What I need to do?
Just hit the mic button off of there.